our fall sign today. You should have gotten a package with the 4 wood pieces. So the big one goes on top, the 3 smaller ones go on the bottom, and they're going to be connected to the big one with twine. This twine we're not going to need to the end. So in your little brown bag, you should have a pumpkin, an acorn, a leaf, and then the letters for fall. So what we're going to do first is we're going to paint our backgrounds to everything. So all these little things, I'm going to put them aside. What I am going to do, I'm going to work on the big one first. So I'm going to take my big sponge brush, and I'm just going to paint this big one. I have my paints over here. I'm just going to stick that corner of the brush and paint my big one white. Now for your background, you could do any colors that you want. I'm going to do a white on the background, I'm going to do some black letters, and then I'm going to put some gray streaks on the back. So if you look and see mine, I left it a little streaky because I kind of want to make it like rustic, a rustic fall sign. So I'm leaving it a little streaky, and once the white dries, we'll go back and add some gray streaks. So I'm going to take that aside, and I'm going to start working on my squares. So to get a little color in my squares, I'm going to use the light blue. So I'm going to take my smaller brush, just mix up your paints. I'm going to use light blue on 2 of them. And as you paint, you can do your edges too. I'm using my white brush so it gets like very light blue. So I'm going to do 2 of them with the light blue. I'm just taking my smaller brush, painting a little, and then using my bigger brush that has the white to kind of smooth that all out. Alright. Doing my edges as well. My middle one, what should we do? My middle one, I'm actually going to make it a tan color. So I'm going to take my smaller brush, put some brown on my middle one, and then take that bigger brush, that sponge brush that I cleaned, with some white on it. And I'm just going to spread that brown around, to make it a little lighter. We're going to be using like lots of browns and oranges and a little red. So, beautiful. So, once you have your background done, you could put those aside to dry for a little bit. We'll come back to them because we're going to add some details to them. So I'm going to put them aside, and I'm going to start with my letters. So I painted my background, I'm setting that aside to dry, and now I have my small little figures and fall. Since I know I want to do the fall black, I am just going to go right out and just paint that black. So you'll need 2 coats of black. So you'll go through all the letters and then start at the beginning. Okay, so once everything is well covered, you're going to set that fall aside. Make sure you get all the little spaces. Setting that fall aside. I'm going to wash my brush, so wash it. Make sure it hits the bottom and then dry on your paper towel. Alright, so for our next step is we're going to start with our little figures. We'll start with our pumpkin first. So for the pumpkin, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put 2 coats of orange. And while that second coat is still drying, I'm going to go back with brown and add some highlights. So I'm going to start with my orange, just 2 coats of orange. Just adding a little bit of white to my orange too. And if you paint your stem a little, that's okay, because we'll go over it after we add our details. Alright, so while this orange is still drying, we're going to add some details. So you're going to take your small brush. I didn't even wash it. You're going to put a little brown on it. So if you could see, there's 2 dimples on the bottom of your pumpkin. So all I'm going to do is from those dimples make nice curved lines. Then I'm going to wash my brush. And all I'm going to do is just blend those lines in to my orange with a clean brush. I didn't even put anything on my brush. So that's going to give your pumpkin a little texture. And then I'm going to go back with some more brown, and I'm just going to add a little brown to my sides. And then take your brush and brush that in. And then you just added a little texture. So I'm going to put this aside, let it dry, and then we'll go back and add a stem. What we could do next is we could work on our leaf, because our leaf is going to be orange. So I'm not even going to wash my brush, I'm just going to paint my leaf orange. Paint the whole thing orange. Once it dries, put a little more in. I'm going to put a little white into it. White helps the paint cover. So orange. Then I'm going to wash my brush as my paint falls. I'm going to wash my brush. So wash and dry. Then I'm going to take some red, and I'm going to put red all around the edges of my leaf. And I'm dabbing a little, just so my leaf has texture. And I'm going to let that red dry a little bit, and then we'll add some green in a little bit. So let that dry. Then we're going to move on to our egg corn. Egg corn's going to get a little tan. So I'm going to do brown. I made a line to separate the nut from like the shell. I'm going to do brown, and I'm going to add a little white to it on the bottom. And I'm going to put a little orange in it too. Sometimes it has that gold. Oh, it looks almost gold. So I'm going to let that dry a little bit. While that's drying, I'm going to add dark brown to my top, to the whole top brown. Whole top brown, and then we're going to let that dry and then add details to that. So while I have brown on my brush, I'm going to go back and add brown to the stem of my pumpkin. So I'm just coloring in that stem brown. could wash your brush. If you want to get really creative, you could put a tiny bit of green in there too. It's going to mix with the brown, but if you get a little tiny bit, it's not bright enough in here for me. So then that pumpkin is done. I'm going to go back to my leaf. And while I'm going to put on my clean brush, I'm going to put some green. And I'm just going to go put green on the outside edge. It might mix with some of the red and get a little brown, but that's okay. These leaves are really colorful. I'm going to let that dry for a second. And as that's drying, I'm going to add a little brown detail. So I'm going to put some brown on my brush, and I'm just going to make that stem brown, and from the stem I'm just going to put just a line going up, and then I'm going to put some other lines in my leaf. And we have a nice colorful fall leaf. So the leaf and the pumpkin are done. Next thing, I'm going to go back and add some lines to my acorn. So on the top of the acorn, it's like patterned, or it has a little texture. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little black on my brush. My brush is kind of big. You guys have a little smaller brushes, and I kind of fanned it out. So what I'm going to do is, using the corner of my brush, I'm just going to make diagonal lines, all in that dark brown part. And then I'm going to go back on the opposite side. I'm going to add diagonals going the opposite direction, just on that one part. Alright, so my three little fall little decorations are finished. So I'm going to let those dry. I'm going to let the fall dry. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring back my little board. So my paper is kind of messy, so I'm going to come back with some clean paper. So I'm back with my board, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a little gray detailing to my little backgrounds. So what I'm going to do, if your lid to your orange is clean, you could use the lid or else use a paper plate. I'm going to make a little gray. So I'm going to take some white and then a little bit of black to make some gray. We got some gray. And then I'm going to clean my brush and dry it very well. And with this gray, I'm just going to put a little on my brush. I'm going to take some of the paint off, and then on my board I'm just going to go left to right and add some gray streaks in my background. If you feel like you're too heavy, like that is really dark gray, you could go back with some white and just go over it a little bit. The lighter you are with your brush, the better it'll be. I'm also going to add some gray to my little squares, just along the edges. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to let everything dry for about like 30 minutes, and then we'll come back and put everything together. Alright, so we are back. We are back with the assembly part of the sign. So the background is dry, and what you're going to need to do, so you were given twine in your kit. Do not use that. I gave you, that's what the pieces came with. I gave you like some other twine that's easier to work with. So what you're going to do is you're going to cut 6 pieces, smaller pieces, and then we'll need 1 long piece for the top. So what you're going to do is you're going to take these pieces and you put them through the holes, and then you put them through the holes of the sign, and then you tie at the back of it. it's a little tricky, you might need some assistance. So basically I'm going to go through and connect everything. I attach these. It takes a while and you'll definitely need parents' help and a scissor. And then I'm going to add my final string, which goes through, what I do is I go through the back on each side. Through the back. And then what I do is I just make a little knot at the end. I like to see the knot, but you don't have to do it like this. You can do whatever you want. And cut it. So then I have my little sign. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my dry little figurines and I'm just going to lay them out. Like when my fall, you could either do a fall in a straight line, do it closer together. I actually like how that looks. And then you could kind of, then you could kind of mix around however you want to do that, but I don't like the brown and brown. All right, so whenever you get your placement right, what you're gonna do is you're gonna take your glue, and now you can use any glue. Elmer's glue works best. This is a wood glue, but it's actually just like Elmer's. So all you're gonna do is lift the pieces up, put a little glue, goes a long way, you don't need a lot, and just put them down. Lift up and put down. So then with your letters, and you got your letters. All right, so there is your fall sign. Now there's one last step you could do if you'd like. On your paint palette, there's some glitter. I like to use the glitter after I glue, just because the glitter, it pretty much takes the same, it's like a clear coat of glitter. And what you could do is you could just take a little bit of glitter and you just put it on top of whatever you want, any dry paint. I'm just gonna put it on top of my little acorn, the bottom part of it. And I'm gonna put a little gold in my leaf as well. I'll put some in the pumpkin as well. And I like to do this after everything needs to be completely dry, and I like to do it after I glue too. And there you go, you got a little fall sign with a little bling added to it. And now you could do whatever you'd like. If you wanted freehand some leaves up on top too, you could go do whatever you like. But there is your fall sign. All right, thanks for joining me.